When I moved to China, people found Timothy Fitzpatrick Nash difficult to pronounce and impossible to write in Chinese characters. So they gave me a different name. Not a nickname, a different name. Can you do that? Evidently, moving doesn't just change where we are, it can change who we are. Now, whenever we move, whether it's country, job, utility provider, we have to continually prove who we are with a passport or similar, don't we? But if my identity is fixed, why do I have to keep updating this thing? I'm convinced that moving is not a threat to who we are. It's actually what enables us to grow. And yet, when we move, many of us can actually feel like we're shrinking. Either we feel constrained by where we've come from, so that we never quite fit in wherever it is that we go to. Or we can feel fragmented, like we're a different person in each place, and we never really get to show up fully anywhere. If our identity is defined by the land, the lineage, the language that we start with, then we can end up feeling a little bit like we're clinging to an old passport with an expired photograph. But if our identity changes with the context, it can feel a bit like we're holding up different passports all the time. Each one is real, but none of them is whole. Are those our only options? Or is there another way, one that will allow us to grow as we go? As a linguist, when I get stuck, I look to other languages for help. And this isn't about what words mean to a native speaker. It's about what they might mean to us. It's not about dictionary definitions or etymological histories. It's about letting other languages give us lenses through which we can see things differently. Let me show you what I mean. Identity in English comes from the Latin idem, which means same. So you could define your identity based on the things that you have in common with other people, like your nationality, your race, your language. But the Hebrew for identity, zehut, comes from the word zeh, which means this. So you could define your identity by what makes you this person rather than that one. So that's one axis. Is your identity about what makes you the same as others or different to them? The Japanese for identity, mimoto, is written with the character for body next to one for origin. So you could base your identity on the time and the place that your body entered the world. The Chinese, 身份, has the character for body, but next to one for portion. So you could base your identity on the part that you play in the world today. So that's a second axis. Is your identity about where you've come from or where you've come to? Asmita, in Hindi, comes from asmi, which is Sanskrit for I am. So you could think of your identity as the real you that you have to dig down to through everything that masks and corrupts it. Henkilöllisyys in Finnish comes ultimately from henki, which means life force, breath. So you could think of your identity as something that lives and breathes because you do. And that's a third axis. Is your identity an essence to be unearthed or a soul to set free? Thankfully, we don't have to choose. The fullest picture of who you are surely comes out of the tension between each of those. So the question is, which of these axes do you need to pay more attention to today? And in which direction? In all of this, I love that the Turkish for identity is kimlik, which comes from the word kim, meaning who. Perhaps we should think of our identity as a question to keep asking, rather than an answer to keep grasping. Now, the funny thing is, most of us don't notice any of this in our own language, right? We just see the word for identity. It usually takes an outsider to make us go, oh yeah. We need other people's eyes to see some of even the most obvious things about ourselves. And in my case, the Chinese language in particular has given me those eyes. Chinese draws my attention to things that I miss in English. It gives me alternative ways of categorizing things and framing them. It suggests different connections and associations and metaphors. And as a result, I feel that Chinese has taught me far more about myself than it has about Chinese people. I've been learning Chinese for more than 3 decades now. And so it's profoundly shaped who I am. Clearly, I'm not Chinese. And so people tell me Chinese is not my language. But without it, I wouldn't be me. So whose language is it, anyway? I think that depends on how we think about the relationship between language and identity. This is a small, overwhelmingly white British island. And yet the head of one ordinary primary school here tells me that his students speak 48 different languages. What's a school supposed to do with that? One option would be to say, this is an English-speaking environment, and so whatever other languages you have, you can leave them at the door with your mobile phone. But that's not what this school has chosen to do. They encourage the children to bring their languages into school, but, and this is the crucial point, to share them. One teacher told me about a child in her class from a French-speaking family who stutters when she speaks both French and English, but not Arabic, which she's starting to learn from the child who now sits next to her. This school doesn't see linguistic diversity as a problem to manage. They see it as a resource for growth. And if that's true in this school, then what about your workplace? Your club? This island? Our identity isn't something that you can choose arbitrarily, but neither is it fixed. It's shaped by a myriad of interactions over time. Now, it can be tempting to hold tightly to my language for fear that a vital part of who we are might otherwise be lost, or worse still, taken away from us. What if that fear were misplaced? What if interacting with other languages doesn't make us less of ourselves? It makes us more. C.S. Lewis wrote, "In each of my friends, there is something that only some other friend can fully bring out." And I think the same is true of languages. Each one brings out something in us that no other can, even our own. So, here's something small you can try. Ask someone about a word in their language that doesn't quite translate, and then see what that shows you. Not about them, about you. Because moving beyond my language is the way to grow as you go. Thank you.